I'm going to start recording here. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Notary Titans call on Tuesday, July 30th, 2019. My name is Bill Soroka. I'm the founder of NotaryCoach.com and the Sign and Thrive Notary Training Course and Community. I'm here with our co-host, Carol Ray, founder of Notary to Pro. Carol, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning to everybody, especially you.
Oh, well, thank you. What are you excited about this week?
You want to know what I'm excited about? I'm excited because I am totally worn out. I cannot believe how many of my students rocked it the end of this month. I mean, they were busy. They didn't know what hit them. A lot of them never had a signing. This is like they just graduated. And yeah, it wore me out. It was like the phone, 2 lines constantly in my hand. I had cramps in my hand. But no, that was really exciting. This was a great month for a lot of people, and to see brand new graduates out there hustling and working and making money.
There's no feeling like it in the world. Yeah, I love it. You were onto something really good starting a course like that, Carol. That was awesome. Thank you for that. Blaze the path for the rest of us. I love it. Laura, are you back? You with us? Laura Biewer. Let's see if I have a text from her or not. Not yet, but that's okay. Laura Biewer is founder of CoachMeLaura.com and obviously a NNA certified instructor and an amazing contributor. She's going to be doing a presentation. Yeah, I just got a text message. She's having an internet issue. So Murphy has struck again, but she'll be on in about 2 minutes. That's okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in. We will get started because we've got lots of great questions. So I'm going to jump in and do a couple of these questions first. Is that all right with you, Carol? Sound all right?
Sure.
Let's start with the live callers. Anybody on the call right now that has a burning question you want to bring up on TNT, now is your time to do so. You can raise your hand, you can type it into the chat window, you can unmute yourself and ask whatever you are feeling.
Hey, Carol. Good morning. Hi, Bill.
Sarah.
Good morning.
Morning. I have a question for you, Carol. Were you getting, with the calls that you're getting this weekend, were there themes?
There were little things, documents that maybe they didn't see, weren't quite sure about. I think that's probably the most of what I get. I did have a couple that were weird. Offers. This is one thing I will bring up. I have these offers that come that look like they're real, and they're telling you you've got signings and they're going to pay a lot of money, and they're using things like Mortgage Connect. I got one of these from one of my students, and she got an offer for a signing, and she tried to open it, and it gave the red flag, and it says don't open, because Gmail's great at that. If you don't have Gmail, it's a very protective program to use. But most of the time it's just little things. It's like, well, I'm not sure if if they're supposed to sign here. There's one thing I do. There's a theme that runs through it, and I want to remind people of this. It's very important, and Bill is going to agree with me. I get this. I don't know if I'm supposed to notarize this. There's no signature on it, but they're telling me I have to notarize it. And no, if it doesn't have a signature on it, you never notarize it. You've got to go back to the beginning of what we do. The basic concept of what we do as notaries and notary signing agents is that we identify people and we witness their signature and we notarize things. That's the basics. So when we get tied up and, well, does this document need it? And what am I supposed to do here? I want everybody to be able to go back to the basic. That's our job. Identify and notarize. And if that's not being accomplished, then no, you don't notarize something. Bill, you agree with me. I know you run into this, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most common questions across all the mentor calls that I take as well is, there's this little bit of a panic over a particular document, or whether or not it gets notarized or what it does. And that is the key to everything, is going right back to the basics. What our job is as the notary public there is to validate identity, witness the signatures. That's it. We don't have to. The number one is you can't notarize your own signature. You can't notarize a document without there being a signature on there. So especially in the loan signing world. So you can let go of that. And when it comes to the documents, most of them have the title and the description in it. So all the data that you need to briefly describe the document is literally in your fingertips. When you're first starting out, though, it's panic mode, right, Carol? Like it's overwhelmed. You've already been through training. There's hundreds of pages of documents, so it will sideswipe you a little bit and you start questioning yourself. But if you just remember what your role is in the appointment, you can kind of bring yourself down to earth again. Absolutely.
But I love the fact that we mentor, because you can come, kind of bring people down, give them the encouragement that they need to, yes, you're going to be great, you just forge ahead. And I love it. I love watching people kind of struggle at the beginning, because it's just a natural part of what they're doing. And then all of a sudden things just sort of fit into place, and it just makes you feel so good.
Yeah, it starts to click. The other thing too, and you can probably relate to this too, Carol, and for all of you on the call, is remember that your personality is what is really going to make you shine in this business. So don't be afraid to show up and be you. And I know Carol talks about this all the time. Be you. When you show up, you don't have to be business person, signing agent, and then be fun and carefree in real life. You can blend all of that together. You can engage with people on a very personal and yet professional level. That is what's going to really make you stand out in this business.
That's the last thing I tell people when they're ready to go to their first signing. Take the breaths, relax, get used to the neighborhood, put a smile on your face, and the second you walk in that door, you be yourself, because people's antennas go up. And they go, oh, this person's not being themselves, and I'd better be cautious. Yep. But they know, they just know right away when you're yourself. If you're quirky, if you're funny, if you're, you fall flat on your face. I'm kind of that person.
People either love it or they don't. Right? Yeah. You got to embrace your dorkness. That's one thing I learned in this business, is I just embrace how geeky and nerdy I am and how much I love shuffling papers. Well, that's my unique thing.
People know it. That's the thing. You've got to get them to realize that they know that the minute you walk in. And if you're not yourself, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Let's jump into a few more of these questions. Great questions popping up into the chat window, by the way, Carol. So the first one, how do you handle credible witnesses? I'll jump in right away and just say this is very state specific, Alice. So you've got to find out if your state will even allow credible witnesses in the first place, and if they do, what are the specific rules? There are some states like Washington that are super picky, and you can tell they don't want credible witnesses around, but they make an allowance if you meet this certain criteria that are hard to meet. Other states like Arizona, it's really easy to use a credible witness. So you got to check with your individual state. Carol, any other feedback on that one? On the loan signing?
No, it's true, and I always have to refer. Because we train all over the country. I always have to refer them to their state. I do have material though in my libraries that people can print out when they find out what is required for their state. Then there's certain things that they need to do. Got a question for you. I started doing something, and this is for you. I started doing something a number of years ago. A credible witness affidavit. Have you ever used those?
I will only use a credible witness affidavit if I have a credible witness to use. Absolutely.
Oh, okay, because I've heard of a lot of people, and this is what I tell what I suggest to my students, is that they keep an envelope in the back of their notary journals with the dates of the journal, and like glue it in and use that for things that you want to save. Like if you've got the credible witness affidavit, because you don't send that in, that stays with the notary as proof if they ever have to have it. And keep those things in the back of your journal so that if you're ever called on something that is during that period that journal covers, you know that you can find proof of odd things that happen. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever done that?
I love that idea, and it kind of blows my mind that we don't have somebody who's creating all these journals actually include an envelope in the back. That's a great idea, because there's all kinds of backup documentation. Like even sometimes you'll take secondary and third types of IDs just to revalidate, to get that comfort level that you need to make sure somebody is who they say they are. You could put all that in the envelope.
Exactly, and that's what I used to do. I used to take an envelope and just glue it in, and that anything that was done during that period of time, I knew I could find in there. So,
Laura, that's a perfect segue for talking about streamlining the journal process. Are you on?
Oh, I hope she made it. Oh, no.
All right, we'll keep going because we got some great questions here.
Should I call and see if I can get her on the phone and she can at least speak?
She's texting, so I think she's still working through it. We'll give her a few more minutes. We got plenty of questions, so I think we'll be all right. We'll give her a little time to work through it.
Well, I look like Carol Burnett.
I like your new. Did you get a new hairdo or a haircut?
Yeah.
Yeah, looks great.
Thank you.
All right, so Mike says, I stumbled across you all last night, watched many of your videos, wondering if you're anywhere near saturation. I'm in Northern Colorado. Carol, can you speak to the saturation question? Because we hear that quite often as well.
How can I put this? Those that shine. I don't know what else to say, except that there's people out there that just jump in. They don't think they need training. They don't think that it's important, and they don't succeed. You hear struggling all the time. If you're really wanting to be successful, you need to go to people like me, like Bill, like Laura. You need to do your research before you take courses. You need to make sure you're comfortable with the type of learning that you're going to be doing, and it's really important to talk to people, find out what they're doing. I am so proud of, and I know you are, of your students. That's what this last month was all about. It was just amazing watching these brand new people get out there, and they're doing 3, 4, 5 signings, and they're doing great. No mistakes, nothing. So saturation, there is a lot of saturation, but there's a lot of people who jumped in a very unprofessional manner, and they're just not doing. And Laura and I talked about this. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
She ran into a situation not too long ago that was really bad, and it handled her signing, so it was not a good. But yeah, there's a lot of notary signing agents out there, but if you're really dedicated to because you people here, you're dedicated. You spend your time on Tuesday mornings watching and listening to people who know a little bit more than you do. So
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, so is there saturation? It depends on how you measure it. If you were to get on signingagent.com and type in your zip code and see how many signing agents there are, if that's all the data you used to make your decision, then you'd probably not want to do this business, because you're like, oh, there's plenty of them out there. What do I need? But in this business, this is the most relationship-based business I have ever been involved in, and I've been involved in a lot. And the cream rises to the top. When you work the system, like Carol has a system, Laura has a system, I have a system that are heavily, we teach you how to build authentic relationships, not just, hi, I'm fake and I'd like to get some business from you, but really cultivating genuine, authentic relationships. When you do that, when you put that level of effort in, there are people, like Carol says, I've got students who had nothing to do with this industry before 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. They take it seriously, they get in, they study, they practice, they take it serious, they cultivate relationships, they step out right from the get-go, and they just know this is the right business for them. They thrive in it, they show up 100%, and they succeed, even in markets where there's thousands of other signing agents, because they follow the system, and they're are genuinely trying to connect to people and grow their business.
Mhm.
So it is absolutely possible. It doesn't necessarily matter how many signing agents there are. In the very beginning, it can, because especially if you're just working with signing companies, you get on the list and it just feels like you're getting order after order after order after order, not actually getting the assignment. But if you follow the instruction that Carol gives, Laura and I do, and you build relationships with those schedulers and you really put that time and energy into it, it starts to pay off. You start to shine. Like Carol, I think you said it perfectly. Those who are going to shine, shine. And it's, as an owner of a signing company, when I'm looking for somebody, I don't have one of my students in that area, and I'm just going down a list and I'm just dialing, just trying to get somebody to answer the phone, or when they do answer the phone, have something to say besides how much you're going to pay me. That those agents sign up. I go through my phone and I've got Topeka signing agent, awesome. You know, that's how I put them in my phone, because I just typed Topeka into my phone and I'm like, oh, thank God I had somebody I worked with that I can do this, because they built a relationship with me and they did an awesome job. So, Laura, welcome. I'm so glad you made it.
You know what is also
Hello.
oh, I'm sorry.
Internet's great until it's not.
Yes, it's awesome. It's awesome. Well, Laura, thank you so much for being here. This is Laura Biewer with CoachMeLaura.com. Laura, we're kind of getting into the roll of questions right now, but I'd love to, just here in the next couple of minutes, jump right into your presentation. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Carol, we cut you off a little bit. I'm sorry. Did you want to wrap up on the previous?
Oh, it's just one thing. I always talk to people if I have any feeling that they're in this for the kind of the wrong reasons. I will ask people if they love people, and I've actually told some students, turned them away because they said, no, but it sounds like the money's good. This isn't the business for you. You have to care about people.
Yeah,
That's
those are the ones that shine, the ones that are in this for the right reason. I love that, and that's why I love this group too. All right, we're going to do one more question, and Laura, I specifically held this one off a little bit because I think this is going to be right up your alley for general notary work.
Okay.
On a power of attorney, when a client is only able to blink her eyes, how does that work?
So, you know, the idea is that you have direct communication with your signer, and in whatever form that can take. And what's important to remember is that, one, it is not interrupted or facilitated in any way through a third party, meaning the family member says, oh yeah, see, they blink their eyes, that means yes. You have to establish a little bit of communication before you ever get to what it is you really want to do, to see if there's a purpose behind the blink, to see if it's consistent. I have done that before. I don't recommend brand new notaries doing that kind of an assignment, because you need to be confident in yourself that it's actual communication happening and that they're just not blinking their eyes to anything. So it is a most difficult assignment when you have that, but as long as there's no additional assistance or facilitation or interruption by family members, number one. Number two, you've engaged in some communication long enough that the blinks seem purposeful and you can tell the difference between an accidental blink and she's responding or he's responding to my question, then you can proceed.
Awesome. I knew you'd have the exact answer. Since you have the floor, shall we dive in to the streamlining the journal process? I know, Laura, I was going to tell you, I've gotten, you know, we do all kinds of great topics on this call, but this one I think generated the most email responses ever.
Really?
So excited about figuring out, especially the California notaries.
Yeah.
Figuring out a way to streamline how all the requirements there. And then, of course, lots from other states as well, and a few from states where a journal is required, so they're not really sure how to do this. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great. I'm really excited to share this. I actually took a presentation that was a full hour and streamlined it for this audience that I had done at a conference a few years back. And I had a lot of great response because people in different states, depending on what their state requirements are, weren't sure either what they were supposed to fill out or how to handle it when there's multiple signers. And then as you got into states that required journals and had specific things that needed to be filled out, and then when you get to California, where everything seems to be a requirement, and plus they don't want you to abbreviate, And besides our state laws, there are directives from the Secretary of State that interpret those laws. And that's where you're going to find things like a single entry per document per signer. People keep looking at the code and saying it doesn't say it there. It doesn't. Where it says it is the interpretation from the directive, and the directive is like an additional law for us. We have to follow it. So let me open up. Let's see, I need to share. Let's try this. And then I want to, let's see if that's it. Okay, excellent. And I've enabled editing. I'm going to go into slide. And let's see. Now, just to check, everybody is looking at a slide that says work smart, quicken the signing without rushing your signer. Plus, you still see me.
Yes.
Okay, so that's good news. There are a lot of different reasons that we should be streamlining those signings. It's not just about being fast. First of all, there is purpose to it. And one is the longer you spend on one assignment, the less time you have for others. So you want to be able to fit other work assignments into your workday. If you happen to have taken a lower paying job and maybe there were other reasons or benefits for doing so, you don't want to spend more time on that. You want to spend the time you need and move on. You want to make sure you have some buffer time for calls, for dropping off packages, for breaks in between. If you overbook yourself, and some of us are famous for doing that, if you can cut 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there throughout the day, it might give you that. It also takes a toll on your hands. Now, I've been doing this for 16 years. I've done, close to 5,000 signings alone, and I've done over 30,000 notarizations. It's catching up with my hands. Carpal tunnel, just arthritis, just pain in your hands from all that writing. And so we want to do things to minimize how long we're writing with our hands. And then we want to balance efficiency with effectiveness. So it's not okay to take all the shortcuts in the world or just ignore a journal entry altogether. But we need to make sure that what we do put in, and if we will take shortcuts, that they're effective ones. So there are 5 areas, of course, we can streamline our work. During the acceptance or pre-appointment, during the setup at the table when we're giving instructions so they know what to do, the presentation of the document so that you have a nice flow and rhythm for that, the notarization process itself, and then, of course, journal entries. So I'm going to be focusing on the last one today. As you can see, there are other 4 areas I looked at, but today we're going to look at the journal entry. 2 methods that I can save time. Of course, one is proactively upstream, the conversations I have with the signer, the prepping of my package, checking out all my instructions, the way I set up my table. These are all things that will lead to more of a systematic approach of presenting documents and moving things along. Then there are documentation shortcuts. That could be in the certificate itself, using journal stamps. It could be utilizing out-of-state wording when you think you only have to use your own wording. So that means knowing your law to know that, hey, I can use their wording. I don't need to replace it and start again. And then using any other shortcuts that are allowed by law. So let's just briefly talk about the documents. I use out-of-state wording. I'm in California, as most of you know, and California doesn't seem to like anything from anybody else. This is California. We trust no one. However, for acknowledgments, remember that I can use any other state's acknowledgement if it's going back to that state. That's the first rule. And the second rule is that it doesn't ask me to certify somebody's representative capacity, meaning they have a title of some kind, like they're a trustee or married person. And I'm not asked to make determinations about their status. As long as that isn't happening, then I can use that. I integrate working on my notarization certificates while the signer's reviewing documents. I know that even though I can move things along, the signer's going to look at certain documents. And as that comes along, I take a moment to flip through to say, oh, I have a certificate I could be filling out here. I won't sign it and stamp it till I'm ready to go, but I get a little bit of that work ahead. Certificate wording stamps, I use jurat and acknowledgement wording stamps. So that means the wording is in a stamp form instead of a paper form. And when there's room at the bottom, I stamp it, fill that out, and then put my seal next to it, which is much faster than filling out another whole certificate. I also use a date stamp when I'm doing loan signings and trust signings. You can use a county or venue stamp. You can have that for the county you use the most. I have a name stamp that I can stamp my name into the certificate rather than handwriting my name. If you have a long name, comma, notary public, if that can be helpful. And I have a see attached certificate stamp that I can just initial. So these are just small things. Now, if I'm only handling 2 or 3 notarizations, it doesn't make sense for me to pull out all this arsenal. But I have it in my bag for those larger assignments. So now let's talk about journal entries. So if you're not required to keep a journal at all, obviously you get the most freedom to take shortcuts. First of all, just because your state does not require you to keep a journal for regular notarizations, when you become a signing agent and you're certified, you agree that you will maintain a journal. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that why wouldn't you want to maintain a journal? Because that's your BFF. That's your protection, your memory. I can't tell you how many times I've heard Carol talk about this. So for your own protection, even if you're not doing it for other reasons, you want to have a record of what day you met with them and who was in front of you and how did you know that they were that person and what documents and what kinds of notarizations, just some bare bones. And you can take shortcuts such as using strikes and diagonals and ditto marks and all the columns. You might even, in some states, they allow same signer multiple documents to use one-line entry and just name the different documents in that entry. So you need to know your state laws about what you are required at minimum to write. And then everything after that is where we can take advantage. Make sure that if your state says, yeah, this is what I require, and it does not say, they don't have a directive that states, oh, repetitive information like that driver's license, yeah, don't write it down 15 times. Then that's where you would want to be able to take advantage of that. In California, sorry guys, the driver's license is required and I have to write it 15 times. Use stamps for the date. That I use 2 stamps pretty much all the time. The date stamp is one and the word acknowledgement is the other. Those, because I do more acknowledgements than jurats, and jurat is a very fast word to write. So those 2 stamps take, like 80% of the workload off me. The ID column, let's see, I'm covering some of my slide here, so I can't see what I wrote. Use stamps, notarial, the ID column, they actually have a stamp that you could create, the CADL or whatever driver's license state it is, a DMV, and then you would just write in the number, right? And it's a 2-liner, and the bottom liner you could put EXP. So all you're writing is the expiration date and the number. And the wording is pretty much preset, except for those times when you're using something else. Okay. And another one might be a common document. If every loan signing has a deed of trust, then you know what? You're going to use that stamp a lot if it just says deed of trust. Okay. I highly recommend and prefer an ink stamp. I do not recommend stickers, any of that kind of stuff. Stickers can come off later, just not the same deal as ink on the paper. So I took an example from California where they're showing us, and I did this for California specifically because there seems to be issues. Notice all the shortcuts with ditto marks, but notice where they said it was wrong. It was wrong in the acknowledgement column. See how they said that was wrong? They do not want a ditto mark in that column because it's a requirement. There are 3 columns not required in California if you're using this particular style of journal. And that those 3 columns would be the 2 address columns. Where did I meet them? And where do they live? Name and address. And then the additional information. They are not required by law. So you can ignore them. You can fill them out. You can fill it out once and use ditto marks, down arrow marks, whatever you want, because it is not required. Everything else is for us. In California, you need to write it, over and over again. Notice the ditto marks under the name and address column, they circled them to point them out, but it doesn't say wrong. Name and address, a lot of notaries think that is required. And in our state, it's not. There are states where the residence address is required. And if it is required in your state, then you need to write it in. Here's another one where what was wrong? What was wrong was they used ditto marks in the driver's license. That's what was wrong. And they used ditto marks for the thumbprint, because we're a thumbprinting state, for additional loan documents. And every one of them need a thumbprint, not just one. All right, so they took the example, the journal example, actually, from something the NNA provided, and then they published it by editing these things on their directive. It was actually on a California directive from the Secretary of State's office that came out in January of this year. This is the third year that they've addressed it in the directives. So that must mean that in the audits, they're still finding notaries who are not complying with shortcuts in the right places. So it's important for us to take shortcuts to help ourselves, but not do them in a place where we're going to get in trouble with the Secretary of State's office. And the last thing I want to say about California specifically, although I think it's true for any state where they require an entry per document per signer, is that many states, the public may ask for a copy of a line entry, any line entry, if they know enough information. The problem is if there are strikes for the signature, if there are down arrow marks and ditto marks for all the documents but one, and the one they asked for is not the one that you have all the information for, there's a problem there. We're not supposed to release more information was requested and or what was they provided or named for us. Because even though it's a public record, we protect it from unauthorized access. All right, so that's one of the reasons is the public, also attorneys and other people, title companies may ask for this, and they may say, I want to see this one. Then that's the only one you're supposed to show. And what if all they get is, see that line where there's a ditto mark where it says wrong, it's blank, I mean, you get part of the name and you got ditto marks for the thumbprint. How helpful is that? It's not very helpful. So that's why we want to be effective with what we do. All right, so the other questions that I get are, well, how do you fill out the entries? Because I'm presenting documents, I'm watching them sign, I've got a journal entry I need to create, and this is all happening at the same time. So when you're brand new, some of you, if you're in a state that allows for it, might prepare your journal ahead of time with the things that you do know, because you have those documents there. I say the states that allow it because California, in January of 18, gave a directive that said you're not allowed to prepare it. It's not your date planner, right? It's not your calendar. It only should reflect what you're actually doing. And I guess in the audits, they must have seen too many big strikeouts for signings that were canceled, right? But they had prepared the journal already, and they don't want to see that. They only want to see what's real. It's fine to strike something out because it's a mistake, because this document isn't going to work. That happens, but not to use it as your calendar. In my state, I'm not allowed to do that. So I have to do it integrated in the signing. And the way I do that is I'm left-handed. So I open it up to my left side. I have my document pile to the right side. I am presenting documents as I present them. This is your deed of trust. This is what enforces the note. You pay, you stay, you don't, you won't. People pretty much understand that. While they're signing that, I'm going to, well, before I started the signing, I do one entry for each person, just one. So I have their license, their name, so I have a start. And then now I have a start, deed of trust I passed on, I write deed of trust, and I'm going to either use a stamp for the acknowledgement or write an A if I don't have my stamp out. And then I'm going to keep moving on because I have to fill out the certificate as I move on. Then when I get to the next document that I see is going to be notarized, The only things I'm going to enter as I move along are the things that are that change, such as the time, the notarial act, the name of the document, and which signer I'm working with. So I might put the first initial of the name of that person so I can keep track which one is being notarized. And I flip-flop names. So that means I started with John Signer and then Jane Signer. Then I use a down arrow mark for Jane Signer again, and then it goes to John Signer. Then I do use a down arrow mark again for John Signer, and it flips to Jane Signer. So they're going back and forth, and that saves me writing the name every single time, but I still know who's who. So I only track with these important items. And then whenever I get to a document that takes longer because it's one of those ones they want to look at, no problem. Take a look at that. And I backfill. I start backfilling anything else that I need. So that way, I'm filling out certificates as I go, and I'm tracking in the journal as I go, and wherever I have opportunity, I backfill. Now, I won't have it all done by the time I get to the end, but I save a document, like statement of information, one of those, where it takes 5 minutes to fill it all out. I let them work on that, and I finish off whatever it is. When they're done, I'm done. And now I'm going to switch roles, and I'm going to say, look, here's my journal. Let me give you some instruction about how to sign it and thumbprint. While they're doing that, I'm grabbing the stack, and I tell them, I'm going to be doing a QA. I'm going to look for missed initials, missed signatures, dates, anything like that. So I'm going to be focused on this. You be focused on that. And so usually they're done a little faster than I am. It might take me another minute or so to finish my QA work. And now we're pretty much done. So I don't pre-fill the journal all up front, and I don't wait till the end to do it. I integrate it as I go where I have time. And believe me, 10 seconds can be another line entry for me because I don't have very much I have to write at the moment. And it allows me to keep moving along. Okay. Oh, I think that was, I thought I had another slide. I guess not. So, Bill, I'm now open if anybody has questions about anything I said or something I didn't address.
Yeah, that'd be great. Can you stop sharing for us?
Yes, I can. Hold on just a second. Where is it?
That was a great presentation. Thank you.
Nice and quick and easy.
Quick and easy. Now, here's, I think we'll probably have quite a few questions. But there's one about the electronic journals that maybe you can talk about, and specifically, you know, whether or not they're suggested or even able to use, and if so, can you use them in a state that requires thumbprints?
So I think that was almost a three-parter.
Mm-hmm.
So one is, of course, if you're in a state that allows for electronic notarization and electronic journals, certainly you could be doing that. They typically, if you're using an electronic journal, they may say that's the only one you're using. Some states are saying, look, you can do paper journal for traditional and electronic for electronic or RON. And you'll have to look at your state specific. I can tell you, even though we're not doing it yet in California, what is in the language of the bill that I saw is that there would be paper journal and there would be the electronic journal. And with regard to what do you do with a thumbprint, since they can't seem to have a thumbprint yet, the logic is that on paper, the thumbprint is the biometric that you're collecting to help verify down the road it was the person who presented you the ID. In the RON or remote notarization, the facial video is your biometric that is being saved to say that was the person in front of you, and you don't need the thumbprint. I'm not saying whether or not I agree with that. I'm just saying that's the logic behind it, is that they're switching one biometric for another one. And when you have the video, then why do you need the thumbprint? So that's why in RON, they're not including the thumbprint for the electronic journal in the states where an electronic journal needs to be collected. Now, I think I missed part of it. I'm not sure which one I missed.
No, I think that addressed just whether or not they can be used and what the circumstances around them and the biometrics. So you nailed it. Okay, so now Jerry says, why does a document signing agency, oh, I think we're rolling off of that. I just wanted to ask one question because there was lots of comments about this. Do you have a recommendation for where people can buy their notary supplies, like a journal and the stamps that you talked about?
So there are a lot of places where you can buy them, frankly. You can go on the internet, on Amazon. There are a lot of different ones. The NNA style journal is not the only one out there. It happens to be the one I use, and I like the setup because I'm in California, and it literally linearly captures everything I need. So I like it. It's what I use. There are other ones out there. Notary Rotary sells one. I think it's called the Modern Journal of Acts. Yes. And it has like a billion little boxes that you can check this, that, and the other thing. I think that is a great one if you're not in California. I do not recommend that for California at all because it doesn't comply with the directives that I've seen out there that you're not, an A does not meet acknowledgement. You can circle the A, but you're not meeting the requirement. So I think that's a great journal for signing agents in other states, but not mine. There are a couple of other ones out there as well. And I haven't checked them all out, but if they work for you, number one, that's the first consideration is the layout good for you, that it's obvious what you need to capture and you're not likely to miss things. Does it have all of the requirements for your state? Because that's a problem. I've seen people use a journal for California they got it on Amazon for a state that didn't require thumbprints. And we required thumbprints, so they had nowhere to get the thumbprint. So now they're like, well, where do I put the thumbprint? I said, you need a different journal. Get a journal that complies with your state. Check out Amazon. There are there's a few notaries, I believe, that have also designed their own journal, their own layout. And so, again, I think you need to look at it and say, I could work with this. This makes sense to me. It works systematically for how I operate, how my brain works. Then that's what I would do. Other supplies, if you can get it in an office supply store because it's not a notary tool, like the wording stamps I talked about. Yeah, the NNA sells them. I don't recommend the acknowledgement. I don't recommend that one. It's too big. But you could probably find a smaller one if you went to an Officemax and had one made, or a shipping center. I use their Jurat one, which is, like a 2x3 size, and it fits in a lot of places. So I like that. But you could go anywhere for that. The only place that you're required to buy in a certain place is if there's a requirement for an approved vendor. And we have that in California. Some states say, hey, just go get it anywhere. So what's a good price? What works for you? Does it meet your state's requirements?
Love it. All right, let's jump in. Laura, again, thank you so much for that great presentation. It's phenomenal, as usual. We're going to jump in because we are a little behind on our questions from the presentation. So I want to make sure that we get those addressed because people have been waiting for those for about 2 weeks. So I'm going to jump in there real quick. Get this. Tell me if I'm actually sharing the right screen here, guys. Do you see the Tuesday Notary Titans presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. This. Still seeing it?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. First question. Now this one's from Jerry. I was going to reword it because this is the wordy one we skipped from last week.
Oh, right.
I think we need to leave it in there. So if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and read it, and then I'd love to hear, or I think this is more general notary work, so maybe you can help address this. Question number 1. Principal has the proper ID. It is current and valid. The principal is unable and finds it very hard and difficult to sign her name, but can make a signature by mark. The California Notary Public Handbook says that the mark must be witnessed by 2 persons. The 2 witnesses in the room are the principal's adult daughters, who is also named as the primary attorney in fact and the secondary attorney in fact. Can they be witnesses? Is this ethical? Is it legal? Is it proper? Or is it a conflict of interest?
Wow. Who would you like to address that?
You, Laura. I think this is a little more along the lines of general notary work. So I thought.
Okay, so the first thing that I want to address, then I'll address the answer, is the line that says, is it ethical, legal? First of all, I have to always say I'm not an attorney. I don't know what's legal. I can't define that in my role as a notary. But what I can do is refer back to my state laws. I don't know, is this Jerry from California or is this Jerry from another state?
He is California.
California, okay. So 2 issues, they don't have the proper ID. They can't find it. And the second issue is they're not able to sign their name and may use a signature by mark. And there is, of course, a remedy for each one of those: credible witnesses for the can't find the ID, and signature by mark for the signature issue. You can use the same 2 witnesses for both credible witness and for signature by mark, as long as credible witness requirements are met. They know her, obviously this is the daughters, and they have their own valid ID. So now we're good so far. The next issue is part of the oath that you give the credible witness is that they are impartial, meaning they don't have anything to do with this document. And so the concern here is not that they don't meet the requirement of knowing her and having their own ID, but because they're daughters, do they automatically have a conflict of interest in this document? And the answer I give you may shock you. So I want you to think about what an attorney-in-fact does. Does the attorney-in-fact mean they get everything that they benefit directly? Or does it mean they're taking on a role in which they have fiduciary responsibilities to ensure that all decisions, everything done is on behalf of and the benefit to the signer? That's what I want you to think about. So no matter who it is, whoever's the attorney-in-fact, whether it's the daughter, a cousin, a neighbor, a spouse, whoever it is, when they take on that role, who still gets the benefit of the assets belonging to the signer? It is the signer. They're not giving up their rights to all their assets. They're just asking for help to manage them because they can't manage it themselves, right? So that's what they're asking help with. It doesn't mean that the attorney-in-fact now gets to spend the money on themselves or now gets to have all their stuff. All right, so now that I've clarified the conflict of interest, do you think it's a conflict of interest for the attorney-in-fact to be also a credible witness? I'm going to save the daughter part in a moment, daughter-in-law. Just if you're attorney-in-fact, whether you're related or not, are you in a role of a beneficiary? That's the question to be answered. And my understanding is no. They are not a beneficiary. They are in a role to facilitate the management of assets or make decisions to make sure it's always in the best interest of that signer, not for them. And usually there's a section for them to sign that. Now I'm going to take it one more level, which is they happen to be daughters or daughters-in-law. In some states, immediate family members are not supposed to be involved in notarization work. Not in California. California, one of the few that say, yeah, it's fine. I think Texas is a state where immediate family is not allowed to be participating. So if your law does not prevent a family member from assisting in this way, to be in this role, then the answer to this would be yes, this is California. They could be the attorney-in-fact, and they could be a credible witness, and they could be signature by mark. Now, that's the legal way I see it when I interpret what the law says to me. Do I think it's a good idea? Do I feel that, gosh, there's, a lot of family happening here and nobody else? And is that a good idea? Now, that's the notary needs to start thinking about, am I comfortable with this? Is there any tension in the room? Is there any clues that are being given off that maybe this is not a good idea? That maybe this person is not doing this of their own free will? If I have any of those feelings, then I say, okay, daughters, I need you to leave the room so I can have a conversation with signer. And I want to make sure that, one, this is what the signer wants, and two, this is who the signer wants, right? And that there's no kind of pressure or fear or anything else going on. So there are a couple things I can check out with that. I can also ask, is there any way one person, one of you could be replaced by somebody else? Can you get a neighbor? Can you get somebody that knows her? Or can you be the credible witnesses but have somebody else witness the signature? More witnesses are better than fewer. That's my opinion when it's all family like this. When it's all family like this, it could be perfectly fine. However, it means more work for the notary, that they feel confident that everything's on the up and up. And I would make diligent notes in my notes area of my journal about what I did or didn't do, that I move forward with it. Okay.
Well, I knew you would have the answer. Awesome. Thank you, Laura, for that.
Can I throw something in there, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
One of the things that I think is really important, and I tell my students this all the time, is not just for women, it's men too. Go with your gut.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an instinct that something's not right, you need to explore that instinct. I can't tell you how important it is and how many times in my life I have let my gut lead me, and it's proved right. And that's one of the things I stress with my students, that you have to listen to that interior voice of yours, and it will lead you. More often than not, it will lead you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Carol, spot on.
Yep. You have that intuition for a reason. Love it. Brigitte says, and this addresses one of the questions that was in the chat window as well, is who sets the signing appointment, the title or the signing service, and why is it not a requirement to set the appointment only when documents are ready? That's why I know we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
You talked about that one, but it came up again in the chat window. So one of you like to talk about that real quick?
Are you or Carol going to address that?
I just heard somebody playing with their microphone. I didn't hear what Bill said.
Oh,
sorry.
Just would one of you two like to just address that real quick?
Carol.
All right. Well, it's usually set by not usually by title. It's usually set by a signing service. They get the order and then they set up the appointment usually. And why they set them up before those documents are ever going to be ready, who knows? I get so tired of it. This is the one thing that is so frustrating. There's two things. First of all, the fact that documents are, we've talked about this before, that there's no uniformity in documents. Everybody's just got their own set of documents, and there's a billion ways of doing it. And the fact that these appointments are set and the documents are, we're getting 2 hours before the signings, no docs, an hour before the signings, no documents. And I don't know why they do it. I don't know who's at fault in this. I do know that there's a couple of lenders that we probably all know of that never get their documents on time, and it causes such chaos with our appointments and what to do. But I would say that mostly it's schedulers. If you're working directly with title company, then it's title companies. Most of everybody's working a lot with signing services, and it's the schedulers that work for these signing services. But their knowledge is based supposedly on when those documents are going to be available.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing right now too, is that the volume is so high right now, guys. They lowered interest rates again. So these lenders are just inundated, and then the escrow officers, the closing agents, they're inundated as well. So they're just working like 14-hour days, and when the documents are ready, they're ready, and there's not a whole lot we can do. I'll give you an example. You know, I work only escrow direct now, and I have a commercial client who called yesterday, and they're like, please call this client in Honolulu. We're going to have documents. You need to organize this whole thing. But I had learned from past experience with them, the documents aren't going to be there. So I just never, I haven't reached out. We haven't scheduled anything. And you know, they wanted the signing to be at 9 o'clock this morning, and I still don't have documents. Mm-hmm. So these kind of things, really good clients too, that, you know, their lenders or whatever are just falling behind. So it's just kind of the trend right now. So we got to be patient, but then also be proactive in your communication. I know if you take pride in what you do, part of what you're feeling, that anxiety of not being ready, not having the documents, is that you pride yourself on being a professional and that you show up on time. And sometimes there's things out of your control that you can't control. So if you be proactive in the communication and reach out and just say, hey guys, due to extreme volume, I know they're running a little behind on documents. Do you have some flexibility in your schedule if we're running a little bit late? What do we need to work around? Like if the appointment's at 6, do I have a window of between 6 and 9, or do you have soccer lessons, whatever it is? And people if you give them lots of notice, they'll tell you exactly what you're working with. Most people say, we're here, come whenever. So that kind of relieves the pressure for you.
This is exactly what I've been telling my students, that especially if they get to know the certain signing service or certain lender that they just can't get the documents in time, to communicate that to people and let them know, I don't have the documents yet. Are you available a little bit later? If I get them, I'll let you know when I get them, when I'm on my way. And if you just plan that in advance, when you are almost certain those documents are not going to be there on time, you're going to save yourself a lot of aggravation.
Excellent. Jenny says, anybody else, Carol or Bill, have a firm response to the title company who tries to get you to backdate an acknowledgement? This happened to be a lender's mistake, mind you. Lender gave incorrect information on how our borrower was supposed to sign the POA. I've told them many times it's against the law. I can't do it. But their argument was that it's not backdating, it's simply correcting the first acknowledgement, and that correcting is not against the law. Now, I happen to know that Jenny's in, well, I don't know, I believe she's in California, so this might be California specific, maybe not. Laura, can you address backdating or correcting and correcting?
Right. And so again, guess what? Different states, different laws. California, it's seen as backdating. You have to re-meet with the signer and completely re-notarize the document, which means you need a new date. So that's the issue with California. And the reasoning behind doing that is the Secretary of State said, well, there's nothing in our law that gives us remedy to correct certificates. So then that means there isn't a way to do it, so you're just going to have to redo it. In other states, there are remedies in the law that tell people, here's how you correct a certificate. Here's what you do. So in those states, it's not backdating. You're just fixing the certificate. But, and I don't know all 50 states. I've just seen them where I've noticed there's correction, where there's actually provision to correct the certificate. And then, of course, in California, forget about it. You have to redo it.
So,
California needs to come up with a remedy.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
The Secretary of State.
Because this can be a really big deal for especially the loan closing area. So maybe both you and Carol and Laura, maybe you could share a way to handle this when you've got a client who is pressuring you to break the law. How do you handle that?
Well, I tell them you can't. So it's as simple as that. If you're in California, you can't. And then it causes all the repercussions of having a different date on the documents and all of that hassle that it causes. It's a mess. It's just a mess when you have to try to correct something and you can't. Legally, you can't do it, period. That's it. End of it.
Laura, do you walk away from the client or do you find a workaround?
It's pretty hard when they're insistent on you backdating because it's backdating. There's no remedy in California, just like Laura says, and because of that, they put tremendous restriction on us, and it can be really bad.
So I want to interject here that I have found it helpful for them to understand my situation when I also share that it is allowable in other states where there's remedy, where it says how the notary can fix the certificate. So I understand why you think this way. It makes perfect sense. I'm just correcting something. I'm not creating a whole new certificate. And you are right. In many states, that can take place. Unfortunately, I'm in a state that specifically has told me, I'm not even reading between the lines. I've specifically been given a directive from the Secretary of State that said, if I'm caught doing this, they will consider it backdating. That is a felony offense for us with a year in prison, up to $10,000 administrative fine. So since I have that information in my hand, And I know it's different than many other states. Perhaps they don't realize because they get notaries to do it all the time in other states. So it's not that they're trying to get you to do something illegal. They're just not getting why other notaries can do it, but you can't. So if you could share with them, you get it. It can be done in other states, but here's my situation in my specific state that I'm bound to.
I've not found people to be very understanding of that, though. They want it done. They want it done. They don't care. That's it. Unfortunately.
Yeah, sometimes that is the case. Then they usually find their own workaround, which, well, that's a whole other story. We'll get into that another time. Joe says, is it safe to print sensitive client documents using a third-party location like a Kinkos, Officemax, or a library? I hear it mentioned from time to time, but I believe this exposes sensitive client data. And I know that we do talk about this quite a bit. I know I talk about it quite a bit, even with my own students, and having a backup plan. And and Carol, I'd love your feedback on this too. And Laura, I'll give you some time on it as well. When it comes to printing documents, the buck stops here. We are all ultimately responsible for the security of the information on those documents, for sure. And sometimes things don't go according to plan with printers and things like that. So we've got to get the documents printed, but we also have to mitigate the risk. That's why I like to be selective. If you're going to outsource or use an outsourced location, you want to make sure that you use a place that wipes their data from their machines, because those printers, giant printers, store that information sometimes. They have like computer hard drives that save everything that gets scanned through them or copied on them. So you want to make sure those get wiped. I also like to choose organizations that criminally background check their employees, and I like their employees to be notaries as well. So they have like a fiduciary responsibility in the process too, not to steal information. Is any of this a guarantee? Absolutely not, but it's a way to mitigate the risk a little bit. So if you had to do it, it should be a last resort in most cases. But and then also bringing your own flash drive as opposed to emailing it or uploading it somewhere. Bring your own flash drive, plug it in, print out, and make sure they wipe the machines. I think that's a way to help mitigate that. What do you guys think, Carol, Laura?
Well, I'm with you. I use flash drives. I have external drives. I keep everything off of my computer because I'm no longer doing documents, but I did. My documents were always downloaded to a flash drive and kept separate of my computer. Of course, I've always said keep your documents for about a month after you've been paid for reasons of my own. But yeah, I agree. And the problem is that if you have a situation where your printer is broken down, there's very little resource for you. The only thing that you can do is if you can download those documents and take them in with a flash drive, they do have computers that you sit down and use at places like FedEx. But the problem is that you're having to print, even if you print them out, because you have access to printers, you can print them out, but you're right, unless they wipe them clean, they're still on that hard drive of the printer. So it's really a difficult thing. I have had people that will go to libraries, and they're more likely to get the librarians to take them off of the printers than maybe a store.
Excellent. Laura, what about you? What's your take on this?
So, I like the big C word, which is collaboration. And so I have notary friends, and it just happened to me recently, not because my printer was broken, but because I couldn't get back to my printer. And so one of my best notary colleagues that works with me all the time, I called and said, hey, can you let me print this off of yours? I'm coming to your town to do a signing, and I can't drive all the way back to mine. Absolutely, come on over. And so I was able to do it right then and there off of her printer, which was very lovely and very nice of her. The other thing is that another notary friend of mine owns a shipping center. And I've mentioned this shipping center before. It's a private shipping center, not a Kinkos or FedEx type. And she's a notary as well. And so a couple of times I've had to do scan backs because it was like 150 pages or print. And she takes care of wiping her machine. So I'm in a position that I've developed relationships with some other notaries that we can return the favors. I send a lot of clients her way when they don't need travel as part of their service. And then she helps me out. So think about, do you have a notary colleague that you might be able to help each other out in a bind?
Excellent. I love that. Collaboration is key. And I've got a few of those spread out throughout the Phoenix as well. So it really works out nicely. All right, guys, that brings us to 9:05. I want to respect your time. Thank you so much for, we got some noise happening there. Sorry about that. Thank you for growing yourself and your business on a Tuesday morning. I honor you guys for taking time out of your busy end of month schedule to be on calls like this that make us all grow and be better at what we do and what we love. Carol Ray, thank you so much for being here. Carol's the founder of NotaryToPro.com if you want more information. Laura, awesome presentation as usual. Thank you for joining us. And if you want more information about Laura, check out CoachMeLaura.com. And of course, my name is Bill Soroka, founder of NotaryCoach.com. Guys, we're at the same time, same place next week, 8 a.m. Pacific time, right here. Of course, I'll send out the email via link, and it's all over social media as well. Have a great week.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.